Good evening and welcome to the Wednesday, July 12th, 2023 Planning Board meeting for the town of Raymond. The Planning Board will come to order. The board does have a quorum, and we'll start with roll call with you, Mike.
Mike D'Arcangelo.
Mike Richmond.
Robert O'Neill.
Ed Kranich. Mark Childs.
And Zoom.
Evan Woodbury.
This is a public proceeding, and unless the board specifically votes to go into executive session, you have the right to hear everything that is being said and to look at all the exhibits that are present. Please notify the chair if you're unable to see or hear. The board works from a published agenda and will be considering tonight's items in the following order. We have an application from Port Harbor Holdings, and we have a request for an approval, a request for an approval of to grant an approval of a extension on an existing project. In each instance, the burden is upon the applicant to demonstrate compliance with the provisions of the applicable ordinances or state law. All persons speaking, including representatives of the applicant and members of the public, are asked to stand at the microphone and state their name, address, and affiliation with the application. All persons speaking shall address the chair. After the board votes on the merits of each application, it will prepare a written notice of decision. Because the notice of decision may substantially affect any appeals rights, and also as a matter of courtesy, the board asks that those attending the meeting with regards to a specific application not leave until the board has completed its discussion. Appeals from adverse decisions must be filed with the Superior Court or as otherwise provided by law within 45 days of this board's decision. Also, to be certain that you preserve your individual rights to file such appeal, you must be sure the board records evidence of your appearance this evening. Okay, so our first order of business of the agenda, which I skipped, was the minutes, approval of the minutes. Sandy sent out a corrected copy.
Bob, you skipped over election of chair and vice chair.
I didn't even read the okay. I might have done that on purpose. All right, we have an election.
That's why I reminded you.
We have first the election of the chair and vice chair for the 2024 year. Anyone want to do this?
I nominate Robert O'Neill for chair.
I would second that.
And can we do Ed at the same time? I'll nominate Ed.
Thank you.
I
You're
second
welcome. All those in favor?
that. Aye.
Done. All right, now the minutes. Thanks, Sandy. Any changes or corrections? We have a motion to accept.
Yeah, I move that we accept the minutes as submitted.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
I abstained because I wasn't here.
One abstention.
Aye.
And Kevin?
Aye.
All right, takes care of the admin stuff. Did we do those elections every year? I just don't remember doing that.
I think we might have missed last year.
I can't remember the last one. All right, first is the project from Port Harbor Holdings. So I know this is a site plan review. It's on the agenda as the initial site plan review. There is, Port Harbor Holdings does have an application. Rob, would you jump up there for me?
Yes.
There was a past application that we never really finished acting upon.
Correct. That's what we're seeing forth on.
Yeah, this is a site plan review. I for purpose of information that was presented at the last, through that, which is pertinent, I would like to consider this as a continuation of that present application, unless you have formally removed.
That's what we were assuming. We were dealing with one major comment and dealing with that and whatever else we needed to pick up. So
Okay, so to start with, and I know that, and if you want to wait till after, Rob, that's fine. But from looking for the board, for looking through what we've been presented, I would need a motion if we were to consider this as a major revision to the project that was before us a few months ago.
So move.
Is there any discussion on that? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so for the public, what that means is that we will be treating this as everything that we will do going forward on this project would be similar as if it was an initial project. But information that we were given at the last projects, particularly during the public hearings, we can use for this current project, because it's still, all of that information is still current and continues with the project. Okay? So, Will?
All right. Thank you. So yeah, this is a revision to the prior project that was submitted. I guess I'll touch on the significant changes. The building's become much larger. So the building is now a 19,000 plus square foot boat storage building, and then the outside boat storage has become smaller to minimize the amount of clearing and work within the LRR1 district. So that was really the big issue the last time
Yep.
around, if everybody recalls, is that there was an issue in terms of the amount of clearing in the LRR1
In addition to the lake.
in the distance to the lake. So essentially, yeah, the outside storage has become smaller, the building has become bigger. This project did receive approval from the town back in 2021 for conditional use for the outside sales and service. So with a condition that there was no outdoor air or any of that type of work. So that's still pertinent as part of this project. So we did a review on the project and submitted a memo, which I believe everybody has.
Yep.
There are a few items, but essentially I think the application was relatively complete. So there are a few items missing, which we highlighted in the memo. I don't know if you want me to go down through each one of those items, or we can get into some of the comments that we had as well, if that's what you want to do, or we can open it up to the applicant.
Yeah, let's go to the applicant and
Let's
then
hear
we'll.
what they have to say.
Yeah.
I'll address those as I get through.
Okay. You're up.
Cool. Rob McSorley with Spego Technics. I'm here representing the applicant for Arbor Marine. We do know that this is a major revision to our prior submission, as you have noted in the opening statements and whatnot. We, after I believe it was the November 9th meeting, we went back to the drawing board and we looked at several different configurations and several different uses and whatnot, and tried to come up with something that would work the best for the client. And out of that, we came up with this arrangement here. And as part of this, in particular relative to the building and whatnot, and some of the calculations for the impact here is we dealt with Mr. Suros, Town Code Enforcement Officer, to make sure that we were interpreting things correctly, and when we came before you that we would be on even keel for what we needed to be presenting and whatnot. The major things, we have taken the building. Before we had a lower level that had some maintenance areas and a bathroom. We're going to relocate bathrooms that are on the site now into the corner of the building. And then we had some showroom offices on a higher elevation that fronted 302. We have changed the building now. It's intended to all be for boat storage. You will see a little square over there in the lower left-hand corner, because we are still relocating the restroom, bathroom, shower facilities over into that area, so that will be collected. And then we are relocating our septic field. You can see up there in the gray area, there's kind of a crosshatch area. Before we had the septic area down below the building, closer to the lake. Because of the size of the building, we had to relocate that. We had done test pits up there initially, so we knew that we had good soils. We had to expand the system a little bit because of the change in soils and whatnot. As far as the outside storage, once again, we made a decision that the best thing was to tried to create some additional buffer for our neighbors and also reduce our amount of wetland impacts that we had initially proposed. We've gone from, I think it was around 34,000 square feet of wetland impacts down to about 20,000 with the relocation or the preservation of that area that you see kind of in the lower right-hand side below the gray boat storage area. There will be a change of grade there, so we have a segmental retaining wall that will be there, which is kind of good because it will keep people out of that area. You know, there won't be any intrusion in there at all. Once again, we recalculated the areas and whatnot in dealing with Alex Saros, who dealt with the state on this. It was determined the way that the Portland pipeline is looked at is that portion that we won't be using or impacting. We don't have to count as part of the clearing in the shoreline zone. That's the way the state has handled it in the past. However, on the left-hand side of the drawing, you see that we have pavement that extends down there. We do have a green area where our stormwater will flow across, and then we have a slightly smaller detention area on the far side of it. So that all is included in the calculation for the net clearing within the shoreline zone. We also, with the reduction in the amount of impacted area, our tree impact count fell substantially because we're preserving quite a few more trees. And we looked at also our impervious area that we'll have within the shoreline zone, and we meet those numbers also. Just to give you an idea, the resulting impact from cleared area, which is in your package, is approximately 43,395 square feet, which is 24.74% of the shoreline area. The requirement is to be less than 25. The trees greater than 4 inches, we only have 59 trees that size now that we're taking out in the shoreline area, which is 11.5% of those size trees in the shoreline zone. And then the non-vegetated surface, we're only 23,240 square feet, which is 12.67%, which is less than the 15% required by the code and whatnot. Basically, everything else was essentially the same. We did relocate our stormwater areas slightly. The one on the left-hand side, where which is directly below the building on the lakeside, got significantly smaller. The one that we had that paralleled the Portland pipeline easement, that's been moved over adjacent to that wall. You can see the L shape there. So the part of the L that goes up towards Route 302, right next to that is our other treatment area for the site. We've reviewed all the comments, and what I'd like to do is go through those really quickly. There was nothing that stood out to us and whatnot. First of all, I'd like to give you an update on all the other permitting that we've done. Army Corps of Engineers, we have a permit. We had a permit for the prior project, which we submitted, I believe, into Alex and to Will. We have gone, or are we going back to Army Corps to modify that to the lesser amount of wetland impacts. At the same time that we submitted to you all, we submitted back to MDEP. We had asked them to hold off on it. They were ready to issue back in the fall, but we knew that we would be changing site configuration, so we put it on hold. It's back before them. The two processes that we have is a Tier 2 permit for wetlands and a stormwater permit. The jurisdictional timeframes for review are 60 days, suggested 60 days target for the wetlands, 60 days target for the stormwater and 90 days guaranteed. We assume that based upon staffing levels and whatnot and how busy they are, we're probably going to be more towards the 90-day period because I'll combine both of these together. Maine DOT, we submitted for 2 permits. One was for an opening permit for the water lines that we have coming across 302 for the new fire hydrant and for a new service for the building. And we also have some swale drainage work out there that we propose to do. There is a drainage pipe of the DOT that comes across the road that doesn't do anything because it's basically completely buried. So we're going to unbury that and riprap around that as part of the work that we do. That's the opening permit. They never issued that. They never acted on that. We resubmitted and let them know that they never acted on it and asked them to proceed ahead on that. They did issue our access permit though. So we have an access permit. Our access hasn't changed. We would assume that the access permit is still good, but as part of our resubmission in on the opening permit, we mentioned we've changed the configuration of the site and have provided them with new plans on that. Portland Pipeline, we had a written approval from them that had been forwarded on. We have gone back to them also and noted to them that, hey, we've changed the configuration of the site. These are the changes that we've done. Could you please provide us an updated email stating that there's no problem? So we've requested that. I'll try to get through the comments real quickly because I don't want to bore you with too much of this stuff because it's pretty straightforward. The one thing I'd like to do is kind of point out the building that we have proposed. I'm going to come up
Yep,
and move the board for a second.
sure.
Because I'm not an architect, I'm going to use cheat notes for this because our architect wrote some very good notes. One of the things you'll notice that the front of the building kind of mimics what we had before. We wanted to have that low roof line with the dormer effect on the front and the window and glazings to match.
Excuse me, Rob, if you're going to have conversations, could you please take, could you please take them outside if you're going to have conversations during the meeting? I'd appreciate it. Thank you. Go ahead, Rob.
Okay, thank you. So we basically mimicked the same frontage so that we have that look of the New England barn type look with the domers and whatnot. Originally, in talking with the manufacturer for the rack system, and this comes to play, and I'll mention this further down, we have 2 height restrictions that we need to meet. One in the shoreline zone of 35 feet from the existing grade, and then the commercial zone says 2.5 stories from grade. Well, technically this is a 1-story building, but we assumed that it would be interpreted as 25 feet. So that's what we have used as our guiding in the front there. So our mid elevation on the roof between the eave and the peak meets that 25-foot elevation as a peak. Previously, when we looked at this, it was going to be, the back would be a sloped roof to either side, and then when you got to the commercial zone, it would just pop out and slope to the other, both sides. Thankfully, we have an architect involved that has a little bit more vision than I do. And so he was able to recreate that which we had before for frontage there. So that kind of mirrors what we had before. This, of course, is a boat storage building. We've made it look like an appealing frontage of a retail building and to look at towards the New England vernacular. You'll notice that there are 8 parking spaces in the front. There were 2 purposes for that. One was to try and create that storefront image that you would see from 302. but also to be a little bit of overflow parking. Right now, we're thinking maybe that's probably a good place for employees to park, but, you know, as per the information we provided to the town previously, we have no parking problem. You know, we monitor it visually with cameras, and we haven't submitted anything this year, but last year we had no issues at all. There will be, on the either side, there will also be windows, and this is kind of to create a natural light effect in the building too, to minimize whatever we would need for lighting in there. There'll be lighting that we'll probably put in, they'll probably use more towards the fall season when it starts getting darker earlier. You know, we got guys moving boats around and whatnot, and we want to be very careful and whatnot, but the amount of light that we have on the windows that we have on the building, it kind of opens it up inside for the lighting of the building. As we did before, and on the site plan that's underneath, we have larger trees that frame that would be the south side of the building, as we had before. If you remember right, we had a building that was two-story like this, one-story front, a deeper story in the back, and then we had trees that framed all along the side of it, as well as the street trees along the front. We have conifers and deciduous there, and then we have some specific detailed landscape plantings along the front of the building and the front setback there where the parking is. The building materials will be selected to be more natural. It's not going to be a plain metal building. It probably will be metal on the outside, but it'll be of the appearance of a natural veneer and whatnot. Once again, the front facade designed to reduce the large scale of the building and create a more inviting look to it. We have the large dormer on the front. We do meet the requirements for the 40% glazing on the front with the layout that we have. And of course, we'll have very good energy efficient, as we don't have AC now in the building. We will use a lot of natural light or LED fixtures for that fall time. And of course, the bathrooms, and you can see in the lower corner there's on the corner there's a complete window series. That's where the new bathrooms will be for the facility. So that's kind of an overview of what we've done relative to the building and how it relates to the commercial zone design requirements and whatnot. I have much more.
You're going to submit a kind of a narrative on that?
Very long narrative. I use my best engineering practice to reduce it down a little bit. So. Going through the comments really quickly, comment number 3, we've asked for a waiver once again on the parking. We don't need parking. Before, when this was before you, we had 18 parking spaces that we were proposing to put out front. The board had looked at that and agreed with our assessment that based upon the use of this site and the nature of it, that additional parking was not warranted, and that I believe the board made not a finding, but a kind of general consensus that you were okay with that at that time. The next comment relative to the internal landscaping, the same thing there. During the discussions that we had, because of the vast amount of landscaping we had in that immediate area around the front, you weren't really concerned about 100 square feet of the internal landscape area. The parking is much smaller now. Probably the landscaping adjacent's probably a little bigger. So we assumed that you would come to the same conclusion on that. If you want, we can take one of the spaces out and put an island or, you know,
My suggestion on that is, I think we talked about this the last time around, but the parking lot's even smaller this time, is that it's kind of hard to have internal islands when your parking lots are so small, and they're well landscaped around the parking lot. So to me, if they can just submit a brief description of how they feel it meets the intent of that section, I think that would be adequate. in my opinion.
I'll note that. Thank you, Will. The next item relative to lighting, the lighting, we did include lighting, and we included a lighting plan with the foot candle stuff on it. The lighting that we're proposing basically mirrors that, basically the same location. The board at that time, you know, based upon the desire not to have a lot of light at night when you don't need a lot of light at night, the board had come to the conclusion that we were probably adequate in that regards. Relative to 6, the wooded buffer along the south property line. For most of the south property line, the buffer is quite a bit bigger. The only place where it's smaller or the same as we previously proposed was adjacent to the commercial area to the south, where there's boat parking. We're gonna have 15 feet on our side. They have about 10 to 15 on their side. I assume their boats won't see our boats and our boats won't see their boats. So the assumption is that that would not be an issue and whatnot. Relative to number 7 on the cleared opening, I want to come up to the plan real quick, if I could, on that one. Most of the wetlands on site are a forested wetland. There is an open wetland right here. So as Will rightly noted, we basically looked at 100 feet from that open water. And I'm going to ruin my plan here for a second so that I can show you. Currently, the closest deviation from that is right here, where there is existing impacted area. There's actually gravel parking. We're taking it out and we're going to revegetate it. So that's, you know, not intended, and we can put a couple trees there if we need to and let it just do its thing. The other one is right here. We assume that's going to be taken over again by trees. It was there as part of the grading that we needed to do for the drainage pipe that comes under here. I noted in the response that that's 184 feet, square feet. So I assumed that that would fall under the 250 feet for the ordinance, but we did look at that comment, so. Number 9, Will made a good comment. Didn't put any elevations on the top of the wall or the toe of the wall. We're going to be adding that. We'll actually, the wall that parallels 302 will be 2.5. And then the other wall that comes to the south is going to be down about 1 foot to 1.5 foot, the top of it. So we put those elevations on, and we're going to indicate the toe of the slope so that the person who has to do the shop drawings on that that will approve will know how deep to make the wall. There is a note on the, I think it's the site plan that says that the shop drawings need to be submitted. It wasn't on the construction. Number 10, relative to the narrative, relative to Article 9, we had, unfortunately, we didn't look at the brand new 2023 ordinance. which the A to Z went to 1 to 27. Added one more item for solar systems, right? Solar systems. So what we have done is, on the response, we moved all those in your original package that we submitted, moved them over and correctly numbered them instead of lettering them.
Yeah.
But we had responded to those. And the one extra one that you added in the code, we're not going to be doing any solar, so it doesn't apply. A narrative relative to how we meet the Chapter 350 standards, kind of what I went over at the beginning when I was talking about the percentages of impacts and how we have minimized and come down to meet the requirements relative to the percentages. I still have to add a note in there about the 35 feet. I think that was somewhere in the original package in some of the narratives, but I'll add it in that summary also. And relative to the fire rescue comments, we got those Monday or yesterday. Gone through all of them. A lot of them, we had already revised the plans to indicate conformance with them. Relative to the notes that wanted to be put on the plans, we had some notes. I've just taken those off, and I condensed the notes that he has come up with, and I'm going to put a whole other section that says Raymond Fire Rescue Department notes. So we'll comply with all those. And I think the last thing in the thing is the warranty, or the waiver request, which requesting on the number of parking spaces. So that's pretty much
That's it?
my spiel.
All right. Will, do you have?
No, I think he covered it. Again, have you submitted that? You haven't submitted the response yet. but-
No,
oh,
I've just
yeah.
gone through markup plans and.
So, but I think he covered everything that we had in our memo, obviously.
We assume that, I think the submittal date is typically today for the next meeting. We could get it in within the next week, but I didn't know if we wait and see what we get from the other permitting agencies. It's up to you. Or we still need to hear from you, and there's
Yep.
probably comments I need to.
Right. We'll think of something, I'm sure. We'll think of something.
Okay, good.
Are there questions? I think the application is complete. Would you agree with it?
Yes.
Okay, so our first motion would be then to move that the application is complete as submitted.
So move.
Is there a second? Mike seconds. Is there any discussion? Kevin, you okay?
I'm good.
All right, all those in favor? All right, so application complete. So before we get into the scheduling, I think, do we want to, it has been a while since we've done the site walk. It is a major project review. Does anybody feel that we should do that again? What are your thoughts?
I don't know, we've been there a couple times. I'm okay with it.
You're okay with?
Without a.
Without, okay.
I'm good without.
You remember?
Yeah,
Very well.
I'm okay with that.
Okay. Okay. This is not, so our schedule, Rob, I probably, depending upon what we do tonight, you would have a week to make for the next meeting. At that point, I think I would rather do that as a preliminary with a public hearing, and then do final the following month, depending upon what comes out of the public hearing that we would need to address.
I think we're good with that.
Okay?
When's the next meeting date?
Um,
Do it-
1 month from today.
August 9th.
August 9th.
August 9th?
Yeah, you have about a week, though. If
Okay, I'm good with August 9th.
you do it August 9th?
Yep,
Okay.
yep.
All right. Okay, questions from the board? Does anybody?
Actually, I got just a couple. Rob, would you please just give us an explanation of how the septic design, how we know it's adequate?
Sure. For the septic, we didn't have any good records for Portland Water District because some of the water that we get from Portland Water District doesn't get into the septic system. So what we actually did, we put a meter on the restroom facility. That building, we put a meter on it. And so we recorded those. Originally, when we came to you last year, I don't know how many readings we had. There were about 6, and we read it every week. The final design that I used it, we had continued going through August, so we had all the season flows for that particular restroom facility. So that was part of our basis for our number. In addition to that, we took a number of employees above that and counted possible future employees for the new facility, just in case we added a couple and whatnot. So we used those numbers as a basis for the design for the septic flows. And then we actually, I think I put 25 or 50% on the flows from the bathroom. So we knew that were more than adequate. Basically, it's taking all the old flows. The existing system will be discontinued, and the new system, the new field, will handle everything.
Great, thanks.
Yep.
More?
Regarding parking, I just want to make sure that there's no issues. So this is a pretty big building. About how many boats would it hold?
80? Possibly 80.
Okay,
Depends on the size and whatnot.
so I'm just guessing marina business, I would think it's really a tough business, particularly around Memorial Weekend. So probably everyone wants their boat in almost at the same time kind of thing. Does that not cause a short period of time where there's a lot of people on site?
And this goes back to when we got our past approval, we were required to put camera up and monitor that. And we monitored it through every weekend and every holiday and never had a problem with parking on the site.
But aren't you going to have a lot more boats in storage than you've had before?
I don't think it's going to make a difference based upon what we saw. And if that's the case, then guess what? We lose some boat storage and we have car parking.
Okay, great, thanks.
Yep.
Rob, has the proposed use of the building changed?
It's gone from, as I mentioned earlier, we had a mechanical service use on the back side before with the bathrooms. And then on the second floor above the mechanical area, we had some offices and whatnot. And on the front, we had display space. We could display boats and whatnot. Well, now it's all going to be storage and the bathrooms.
So it's total storage, and there's no maintenance being conducted on any of the boats?
There might be some minor stuff within when they bring a boat in, but it's not going to be, if they need major work, they'll be brought over to the shop area to be worked on. And once again,
I'm sorry, so Will, if there's no service and there's only storage and there's no retail, is the parking still a requirement based upon the space?
good question.
In a lot of times, like warehousing, they have a reduced number.
Yeah, it's still typically a requirement
But
for,
it's-
again, I can't say exactly for boat storage building, but for, as Rob said, for a warehousing use or something like that, there's still a parking requirement typically. Now, the Raymond ordinance really doesn't cover that number,
Right.
but there would be, you could get it out of, ITE parking generation manual or something like that. So they're providing 8 spaces. There really isn't a calculation that they've provided for that. They basically asked for a waiver because I think the basic standard in the Raymond ordinance is 1 space per 200 square feet, which would be a significant amount of parking.
Yeah, but that.
For a building.
For a building retailer.
Yeah.
Right.
So,
So the reasoning behind my question is I'm wondering if there is adequate parking on the site already,
yeah.
8 spaces is not going to make a difference. Would that not area be better landscaped for aesthetics than putting in 8 parking spaces that are not really required?
I mean, I think that's
That's ours call. But that,
prerogative of the board to do that. I think you may want to see if they want the parking spaces,
Right.
as they said,
I
for
will. I just-
employees
as long
or
as that
something
would
like
be-
that. But
there's no real, I guess there's no real requirement. So whatever we do would be acceptable, would be within
I would think so.
guidance. Go ahead, Rob, what are your comments?
Well, we were just talking about the mechanical stuff, and he agrees that, the only thing that we'd be doing is probably a minor thing in there. We're not going to do any major work in there. Once again, that would go over to the shop. So,
So the parking is not for employees that are going to be in that building, or is it?
not specifically. It's kind of like, as I said earlier, we could use it for overflow or tell our employees to
Okay.
park up there.
All right, let's just. All right. Rob, just, I know, would you just run us through the buffer area again between, I know you mentioned it. I know there's a seed mix alpha, which
Yeah,
if I could read that small, I would know what that was.
there's 2 buffers that are required. One within the commercial zone for adjacent property, and another one for down in the LLR zone. Goes from 15 to 30 feet. As you remember before, a lot of that area, we had a preserved area anyways that we were keeping before, so that all the houses that were adjacent to there had that additional area. And just a very small portion closer to 302 was 30 feet, and then it goes down to 15 feet adjacent to the other commercial parcel. I don't think they have much of a buffer next to the residence, but I don't think it's really an issue now because of that big expanse that we're keeping. Up on the commercial area, we have 15 feet. Theirs looks like it measures somewhere between 10 and 15. I guess they would be required to have 15, but there's septic areas there, and they store boats there.
So I guess, Rob, I don't know how to reference, sheet 7, you've got the existing buffer, and then you putting in an additional buffer. Is that what that is showing?
Can I approach?
Yeah, please.
Oh, no, that's the slope transition from our level to go down to grade.
Right.
And what we're doing is we're going to be putting seeding there.
Seed mix,
That's
seed
a
mix
seed.
A,
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
a seed mix.
so it's grass.
Yeah,
Okay.
yep.
But you have essentially created an additional width. that
Yeah,
isn't
there's
gonna be
15
developed.
feet, and then that slope
And
that
then
will
the
be
slope.
all,
So it looks like more like 20 feet of slope. Is that, am I guessing right? Is that, I mean, it's bigger than the buffer that you have shown.
I guess it must be. Yep.
Okay,
1 to 3, we went 1 to 3 down the slope.
okay. Anyone else? Yep. Sure, Mike.
Two questions. First, I like the improvement a lot, just so you know. Grades are hard to read on this small copy. That buffer that we're just talking about, sort of up against 302, what's the elevation change between your leveled out area and some of the adjacent boat storage? Just wondering how high is it?
There's actually, if you're out on the sidewalk, there's elevates off their property line, because I think the septic area is elevated there.
Yeah.
So I don't think there's going to be that much of a difference.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is it 2 feet, 10 feet? I can't read the topos.
I can't tell you myself.
Okay. Then I guess
I can get back to you on that.
yeah, please do.
I will, yeah.
I realize it's all commercial zone and it's going
Yep.
up against
Yep.
their
If
commercial
you look at the
area.
contours, I think it's roughly, there's gonna be about 2 feet difference between
Oh, okay.
the flat area and the top of their septic.
Thank you. And then any idea on what the color of the building might be? I know you talked about possible materials, but is
Haven't thought of that yet.
okay. I'd be interested to know at the next meeting. It's a
Okay.
large building.
We-
It's well designed, but I think the color could sway it one way or the other.
We can talk with the higher up, who's higher than both of us, that we answer to, the architect, so,
Got it. Thank you.
yep.
Is there anyone else with questions?
I agree with that, though. I think the aesthetics, I think, is going to play a big part.
So would we want something more than what they're giving us?
No, I think he touched on it. It's going to be like a natural tone, whatever, but not white. That's not our call, but I think this is more appealing. that
We
way.
take this and put some,
Some sort of
Color do I-
chartreuse or something?
what's that?
Little chartreuse?
What's that?
Never mind. It's lost something after the third time, Rob.
I'm sorry, I'm half
All
deaf,
right,
so.
no problem. All right, anything else, Kevin?
I'm good. Looks nice.
I guess I have one thing. I assume there's no sprinklers in this building,
There
right?
will be.
There will be sprinklers.
Yeah, that's a requirement.
Okay, I didn't see that.
Wayne, do you have anything that you want to highlight from your memo?
Sorry about that. On the discussion about the parking spaces up front, one of the things that's really important for us is that access to the front of the building. So whatever that decision ends up being, we still need to have that access to the front of the building.
Okay.
So something for you to be thinking about. Like I said in my email, a number of the items, they've already, for the most part, addressed in the plans, but there are still some things that we need to work with the applicant on. And I heard that he was gonna have a separate note section just for the fire department notes.
Yes.
Correct.
So at this point, I think we're in a good place. You know, there's just some things we need to work on.
Okay. Everybody then is, Will, do you have anything else to add?
You don't?
Okay, so this is not a public hearing, but if there are questions, not for or against, because I will have a public hearing for this particular project, even though we are going to be using your comments from your last public hearing. I think with the major revision, it's appropriate to have another one. But if you have a question this evening about what was presented this evening, I'm more than willing to entertain that so that you could leave with your questions answered. Does anybody have a specific question about the presentation? Anybody in
This
Zoom
is
that has a
Alice.
specific question?
This is Allison Sarna. I was just wondering when these would be posted for public review.
What?
to be able to like download and look at them closer?
Oh, that's a good question.
I believe they're already on the
like-
website. On the planning board page.
The packet that we have
I
should be
didn't-
there.
I did not see them prior to this evening's meeting, but maybe I was looking in the wrong area. But I didn't see them linked in the agenda.
Allison, send me an email and I will email you where it is or try to email you a link to it.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Okay.
Okay, then permits we are waiting on? DEP? No?
Yep, there's, again, 2 DEP permits. There's the DOT opening permit.
The opening permit, and we're having them look at the access permit to make sure they're okay.
Yeah. And you're submitting modifications to Army Corps so they can adjust the amount of wetlands that are impacted.
Yeah.
And then you're also submitting a modification to Portland Pipeline, which really isn't a permit, but they need to.
In Portland Water District also, so we have all updated stuff.
All right, so I think then, I don't think there's anything reason why you cannot make the next meeting.
Robert?
Wait,
Mr.
Yeah.
Chairman,
1 second, Wayne. Yes, ma'am.
She needs to go to the podium.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. You got to go to the podium. Or, yeah, we don't have a hand. You have to go to the podium. We have to get you on records. I'm sorry. You should have that mic.
Allison Allen, Indian Point. He mentioned a drain pipe that was going to come down toward the wetland to drain water drainage. I wanted to know if they anticipate the amount of output that's going to be there, because my site, which is on the water, over the last 33 years or 35 years since I've lived there, has become increasingly flooded and flooded and flooded. And now at least a third of it is underwater and is a mosquito breeding pit. There's no other way to say it. And of course, the people from the town know that when they come to inspect. But I couldn't come to the last meeting that addressed that, and I wondered if the amount of drainage was going to affect Indian Point, because we have a bathhouse that's right in here, right there, and my site is right here, and it over the last 33 years, it's gone from a site to a swamp really bad every year. And I know that we have filled our road every year, so that it's not just a complete mess, so that people can get out there. But so I would think that would have held some back, but it doesn't. And on my site, there was a pipe that came out from, I don't know where, from like where the bathhouse is, or under the road or something, but it comes out into the water. I haven't seen stuff coming out there, but I don't want to go up to my knees in muck to check it out. But anyway, I just wondered if they had any estimate of if that's gonna, how much water is gonna come out, and if it's gonna be able to be absorbed or incorporated into the wetland, and where that's gonna run off. Because otherwise, I'm gonna have to fill.
Rob, I know you do have this is your water flow, isn't it? Diagram?
What's that, sir?
The last sheet 2 of 2?
The post map?
Yeah, on the water flow?
Yep.
Yep.
What we do is, and Will can attest to this, we design two items as part of the stormwater system. One for water quality. There's a treatment component relative to the amount of development that we're changing the existing from a natural condition and adding impervious surfaces. So there's a water quality element. There's a second element, and that's called basically the pre versus post element. That's not required by DEP for this size project, but it is required by the town. So we have to mimic our discharge or limit our discharge in peak to the same that was going to that area previously. And so you can see that whole wetland complex and whatnot went that way. And we've divided the watershed up to mimic that, and the stormwater calculations that we've done show that we're not putting there any more water there than was previously put into the wetland.
Okay.
The wetlands are wetlands. This year, they're more wet than they typically have been. I know in my yard they've been. So
We've had a little bit of rain this season.
what's that?
We've had a couple of days of rain.
Oh, we have,
Yeah.
we certainly have. This site basically drains into that wetland and kind of goes on that page kind of to the left in that open water area that I previously had mentioned. It gets to that and then down.
Can you go up and point to that?
Here, Allison, I'm going to give you, which if I'm correct, this is the water flow diagram, isn't it? Am I on the right?
It's a watershed plan, yeah.
It's pretty ambiguous because
Yeah, this isn't the engineering plan.
Allison,
He's
I'm
going
going
to.
to use this, and it'll hopefully the arrows show the flow of the water.
Yeah, so the water will come out of this detention area. We have a pipe system, and it bleeds into the wetland right here. The natural slope of the land goes here, where it will get into the what is considered a wetland by definition to the town.
what used to be the Loon Preserve.
Whatever you call it,
Well,
used
there
to call
was a
it.
section of land that you couldn't do anything with.
Yeah, that
They called it
wetland
the
area.
Loon Preserve at one point.
The wetland there, I think they called it that.
Right.
And so that goes and flows down and then goes.
When you say water quality, testing, what does that mean?
Okay, this is a bowl we put in the ground, and the water goes into the bowl. The water has to go down through the soil through a special media that we put in,
I understand.
and part of that takes out the hydrocarbons, sediment, and stuff of that nature to clean up the water, and then it discharges off after it meets the water quality.
So then it's going to drain into the wetland. Is the I mean, when they put all the extra boats out there, they said, oh, we'll test the water. Well, that's never happened. How do we know that this is going to be, I mean, I haven't swum on the beach since all those boats have been out there. I mean, it's.
Okay, I don't, this is more public comment now.
But is that, when he says that it's going to be tested,
Well,
is that going to be in the?
Yeah, that is part of the budget, but your concern is the flow of the water into your property. And that diagram and his explanation will show you the flow of the
Is
water.
this for us to keep?
Yeah, you may have that, sure.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. And it's also it's on the website if you want, if you want to take it. Okay. So we would need a motion to put the project.
Mr. Wayne.
Oh, Wayne, I'm sorry, that's right, I skipped you.
That's all right. I just
Thanks,
had
Rob.
a question for the applicant. This is just a one-story building, is that correct, Rob?
Correct. That's it's basically a one-story building.
Okay.
Big.
And do you know how high the racks, how many racks and how high that will be?
3 racks. The highest one, the top is 32 feet, I think. 32 plus change.
Okay. Okay. And then, was there any change to the new entrance configuration?
None at all.
So
The
that's
entrance
the
is the same, and we pushed the roadway over a little bit, but it still handles your vehicles and whatnot. In fact,
Okay.
we've done if you need, I have a routing that we did.
That'd be great. Yeah, thanks. And then with your submittals, you're gonna have the proposed building plans, which we don't have currently, is that right?
Yeah, and the next mill will include what we kind of showed here, And there's a floor plan.
Awesome. Thank you. That's all I have.
Okay, wait. Do we need a motion to table to the next meeting?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Discussion? All right. All those in favor? Kevin? Motion passes. Table to the next meeting. And you can make the next meeting, Rob,
Yep.
with what we've asked for?
It was the next week, I couldn't do it.
Okay, so you got 1 week, I think, according to Sandy.
I can do that.
Okay. Yeah, we need that. You can't leave with that. Or actually, we'll hear you all the way down the road.
After you're home.
Hear my music that I'm playing?
Okay, our next piece of business is the Blue Wave Solar request for extension, one-time 2-year extension. Work. Thank you, Will.
You're welcome. See you next month.
Is there any discussion?
No, this seems like a reasonable request for them. It's out of their control that they've been delayed by ISO New England and also CMP. So can't see any objection to an extension.
I do just want to bring up, we're not concerned about any technological advances that would change or any ordinances that would be put in effect as a result of technological advances in the next 3 years.
That was one of my questions. I think,
I would think so. So that's why I read this and I was like, whoa, wait a minute, let's talk about this.
Blue Wave, I think it must be one of you guys up there on Zoom.
Yeah, Colin Sexton here with Blue Wave.
Right. I think that the board has a couple of questions. One you probably just heard. One, we kind of we pushed this project through relatively quickly at your request because things were in the state were changing, and now if the project was, and correct me if I'm wrong here, but now if this project was to go through, it would be subject to much different state regulations. And to Mark's question on will there not be technological improvements over these next 12 to 24 months that would we would want to see incorporated into this project?
Yeah, and I think that's a very fair question.
Thanks.
When we originally came to the planning board, as you mentioned, we were coming pretty far in advance, but we were coming in with 540 watt panels, which is a pretty standard panel size still used today. So while that approval came in November of 2021, the 540 watt panel spec for this project is still relatively in line with what we would end up using. Due to the I-39 approval delay that was referenced here, we haven't actually spent money on a panel procurement just because while we are waiting on those results, it's hard to spend the capital to actually go out and secure those new panels. That being said, the panels are the relatively same size, same wattage as what is available on the market today. So there isn't any major changes. The project was planned with single axis trackers. Those have become more prevalent in the market over the last couple of years as well. So despite the 2-year change, there really isn't any significant or major changes in the design that have occurred, especially due to the lack of clarity we have from the transmission approval with ISO New England.
Okay. And I guess, Mark, your question is whether or not the solar panels are going to change, right?
Yeah, I just have concerns because the industry changes so quickly. I feel that we may have to revisit some ordinances at some time, and I just feel in the next 4 years from now, I just feel that there may be some changes that if we approve it to go, they wouldn't have to meet those changes, and I'm just concerned about that.
Well, I think it's only a 2-year extension.
It said
They don't. I don't
completed by 27, 25, so 2 years.
Yeah, the begin date is the one that,
Yep.
25.
Mike, looked like you're getting ready to say something.
Well, no, actually I wasn't. I mean, I guess I'm okay with this. I mean, it's hard for, I guess I'm not sure, Mark, what you would prefer to do at this point.
Honestly, I would just like to take a look at the proposal as it comes in. If it's expired, and then it's expired, and just revisit it another time.
If anything changes from what we've approved, then it would have to be a revision that we would have to evaluate,
It's
correct?
subject to any ordinance changes from now until then, but how could we approve something, have a final approval, and then pull that back if ordinances change? Or technology, advances, or something changes, something drastically changes in the industry, and we have an approval. I'm just being, how fast this
But isn't that any,
industry is
relative to anybody that extended any project that has, if the building codes changed in 2 years and they had a, extension that did the same thing, I don't see any difference between this or solar or any other project with an extension. If they didn't meet the codes, I mean, I don't know what, you can do an approval, I guess, an extension based on if there are code changes, they would have to, comply with the code changes.
If there was a
Whose
final
code
inspection,
changes?
there's no code inspection with this. There's no inspection, so we wouldn't know.
Is there a building permit process when this becomes real?
I don't believe so.
This doesn't go to Alex or code enforcement for a building permit?
Oh, I
I think
think,
to meet the fire.
Yeah, I think it
needs a
does fire,
That's
yeah.
about it, yeah.
Yep.
I didn't know if there was a review process at that point.
no.
Nope.
If it was a subdivision and they changed, the road configuration or something, it would have to come back as a revision. And if this changed significantly, it would also have to come before us as a revision, wouldn't it?
Yes,
So,
but I think that's not Mark's. Mark's concern is if the ordinances governing the solar farms change, the project would not be subjected to those changes, because it would already be an
Exactly.
approved project, right? Isn't that
That
my,
was exactly
Whose
the way that
ordinances?
my head
Ours?
wanted to say it is how you said it, that's right.
our ordinances, the town ordinances, or the industry?
State and town.
Again, I don't know, I can't approve it based on if there are changes to either of those. Any project going forward would have to be subject to those changes.
But yet again,
I mean-
there would be an inspection process if you have a building or a house or a subdivision project, there's inspections. There's no inspection process for this.
I guess I'm struggling a little bit with what ordinances, what would change? In other words, what would change so that they had to do something different other than maybe solar panels?
Well, maybe they put in different inverters. Maybe the panels are so much larger, more efficient, you're gonna up it from, I don't know what I can't remember what the 5 megawatt output to, 10. Maybe they go up to the next level in the same square footage. I understand what you're saying, but I don't see why we can't cap that to make sure that they don't change what we approve.
Yeah, I mean,
Because I feel like right now we can't call out what we don't know is gonna change. So how can you define something? you
but I
don't
mean,
know?
what would be impacted on site? Like the electrical, like if we're talking some sort of building, then yeah, we could have building code changes that would require, I don't know, maybe from 2x4s to 2x6s, more insulation, that sort of thing. What would change on this site?
I feel that there's going to be a lot more ordinances that govern the solar fields.
You
And
mean
if we
like,
approve this right now, the way as is, if it's the acreage, if it needs to be in the new ordinances half the size, there's a lot of things changing in this industry, and I just think if we approve it as is right now, it will change by the time they're ready to build in 2 years. And if we approve it as is and have no guidelines of a benchmark of if this changes, then we have to review it. We don't know what those changes are, therefore I'm not sure I'm comfortable blindly approving something that most likely 75 to 80% chance that the industry will change, industry guidelines, ordinances.
I guess,
It's like approving a rocket ship right now that's going to blast off in 2 years. I'm not getting on that ship if it was approved 2 years ago. There's so many technological advances that ordinances change, laws change, rules change, fire code changes, and I thought about this all day.
If they were built it today, if they would build it instantly right now, you'd be okay with it. And if so, you're saying if they build the exact same thing, 2 years from now, it wouldn't be. It would be different. That's it's kind of. I know what you're saying is, or maybe they say it's safer to do something in the future, so they should do something else. But if we approved it right now, they're going to build it.
So why
in the future?
So what's the benefit of approving it right now?
Well, we've already approved it, and they're just asking for an extension because they can't start it due to ISO and CMP.
Right, but if they weren't starting, then I just want to know what the benefit of approving it now for 2 years instead of revisiting it.
It'll expire, and then they'll have to go through the
Oh, yeah.
application
yeah, they don't
again.
have to go through.
No, our benefit, I know it's their benefit, they don't have to go through it, but why would we if there's, what's the town's
Can I
benefit? If we have.
address a few items here?
That expires.
Help.
Yes, please.
So, a couple things. When we're talking about technological improvements here, we're talking about efficiency of panels. You're talking about inverters switching from central inverters to string inverters. This is all being done for the safety, reliability, efficiency of the system. It's not going to be a completely different system at all. We also need this permit to be able to rely on to stay consistent in order to actually go forward and build the project. If that permit changes or is listed as subject to change retroactively, then we honestly can't rely on that approval and move forward with the project. I think that would be the case and true of any development that goes in town. Now, if we proposed a bunch of different changes, different technology, a whole different framework for how this development is proposed, the board would have the right to reject an amendment request. That's my understanding, at least. I also, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe we do have to get a building permit, and it does require code enforcement officer approval before we go forward with our construction.
Yes.
So if we could build this project right now, if ISO New England let us, we absolutely would. The only thing that might change is improvements to constructability, improvements to access, a more refined inverter selection to match up with what the grid needs or is most reliable for the grid. That's what we're talking about here. We're not talking about a wildly different landscape or a different technology. We're talking about, and that's not what we're getting approved under. We're getting approved under a solar field that is going to take 27 fenced acres, 42 cleared acres. That's been approved by the DEP, and we can't change off of that without an amendment. So I understand what you're saying, where technology is going to change. That being said, the technology changes are going to be minor in nature and would require code enforcement approval before we get a building permit anyways, as far as I understand it.
Alex, are you there? Alex?
Yeah, I am here.
So I know that we are restricted, or I believe we're restricted to only one extension. Is that correct?
I believe that is correct, yes.
Can we approve it? Can we approve a 2-year extension with a 1-year review?
A 2-year extension with a 1-year review. So what do you mean, coming back in a year?
Yep. I mean, it's approved. I mean, I understand. I don't know. I forget. Colin, is that you, Colin? Is that at any rate?
Yes.
Okay. I understand what Colin's saying, and it makes a lot of sense. And if they don't have an approved project to work from, then they're at all stop at their with the rest of their applications. Is that correct, Colin? Is that pretty much?
Yes.
Yeah. So, and I think that there is some, and I've been thinking about this too, Mark. There is some concern that if things change significantly, that we would like to be involved in that. So is it, since we are restricted to only one extension, excuse me, can it be an extension with an annual review where Colin will come and tell us that nothing's changed? No, the ordinances have changed that govern the project?
I mean, I think that's fine.
Mark?
When he pulls a permit, it has to conform to all the codes that are in place at that point. So if there are codes that have advanced, tell me if I'm wrong, Alex, he will have to conform to those codes.
Yeah, no, that would be correct.
Right, so we're protected in that sense
Right.
from any changes. Even
Can I
if
ask a
we-
clarifying question on that? Because so we would have to conform with all safety electrical building codes that are active in the town of Raymond. But that being said, the project, if there was a change in an ordinance, say a moratorium, something comes up that actually causes these projects not to move forward, we would actually have to be grandfathered under what we are getting extended under right now.
Right.
So we'd have
Correct.
to follow the codes, but the ordinance that we're approved under would be the ordinance that we are getting approved, the extension on right now.
That's correct.
So I guess for me, the only ordinance I can think of that might change would be some sort of view ordinance like Naples has and some other towns have. I don't see that as a problem with this particular site. I think it was looked at and neighbors looked at it and everyone was happy with it. Plus for me, since it's CMP's delay, not these guys' fault at all, I would be happy to go ahead and approve this. Particularly since
too.
we know that any kind of building code change, they're gonna have to comply. It's just any ordinances that grandfather, and to me, that makes sense.
Yeah, if there's a technological change, in the inverters or something like that, in that equipment, it would be an improvement. I think it's to everyone's benefit if something gets, technology improves or advances during this 2 years. As long as the foundations are the same, the dimensions of the fence, all that stuff, roads, none of that, I can't see any of that changing. If the panels become more efficient and produce more wattage per panel and still look the same, that's a benefit too. I can't see a downside to it.
You're still not comfortable.
Yeah, we all have our opinions, we can vote for this and vote a different way.
All right.
The majority rules, but
I agree.
I just
I think
don't, no, I do
safety
not.
is the main concern of what we
Why do
need to be
approvals
concerned with,
expire?
so
That's why,
ordinances.
approvals expire for a reason, or else why, let's get rid of that. Once you get approved, you can take 20 years to build whatever.
Well, it used to be that way,
So there's a reason.
but now you only get 1 2-year extension. So if this, right, so at the end of that 2 years, then the
Correct,
process has
right.
to go through
But
again.
just the fact that, yeah.
Yeah.
Just,
Okay. All right. We're ready.
Ready for motion? All right, I move that we approve the 2-year extension requested by Blue Wave for the start or the completion of the project, both the start and completion.
Second.
Seconded? Mike, seconded. Is there any other discussion? One last chance, Mark? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And 1 abstention. All right. It passed, Colin.
All right, thank you, everybody. Have a great night and appreciate the time.
Okay. Alex, you have anything for us? You still there?
I'm here. I don't think I have anything. Anything substantial. Obviously, if you've driven down 85 in the last couple of days, you've seen that they've started paving for Raymond Hill, Raymond Hills LLC, Honey Hill. So that project is definitely moving pretty quick. They've got a couple of buildings up at this point. Nothing's completed yet, but that project's moving. I don't really know of anything on the commercial side on the horizon right now.
Okay.
Alex, can I just ask, does anybody know, CMP's put up some poles on 302 heading into Raymond? Some additional poles, they're taller, they have orange tops. Anybody know what the heck those are for?
Yeah, they're
I
probably,
don't.
They're
I
probably
don't.
going to upgrade to three-phase
That's exactly
Yeah.
what it is. Yep.
I would,
primaries there.
yeah.
It's only one single phase going through there right now, which is kind of crazy.
Yeah, it's an upgrade service with the poles.
They put the plastic on as an insulator because you can get zapped, sometimes touching a pole when they're working on it if it's hot.
I don't know how these people know this stuff.
I worked 10 years on CMP projects.
All right, anything else, Alex?
We have one more meeting with Mike?
Yes.
Okay, all right, then yeah, I'm good.
All right, Sandy, folders here signed, except for those that you know are not there. I'll leave it right here.
Yep, leave it there. I'll stop there in the morning and pick it up.
Okay, and no site walk, we're just going right to public hearing at the next meeting. Public comment.
Yep,
Okay.
yep, and I will take care of those notices.
All righty. We ready?
Move to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Done.
Done.
Meeting's closed.
Right.